welcome to Tarkov.
Opachki.
Okay, you just saw what Tarkov was, you can click off now. Please don't. You might have seen it, heard it, or maybe you were scared by that beta price point. No, seriously, you'd be surprised on how many people paid that much for the game. Feel free to listen to this video minimized, as this is going to be somewhat of a video essay commentator-ish format, but there will be some visual stuff going on. Tarkov takes your hopes and dreams and either grants all of your wishes or crushes them into a fine powder, and then snorts it in front of you. It's also as addicting as that fine powder, but the only problem I see is that it can be incredibly difficult to get into, which is why I'm making this video. Okay, so Tarkov does have a little bit of a learning curve, and by a little bit, I mean a lot, but that's just kinda what makes Tarkov fun as a new player. Now, why do I play Tarkov even though you probably didn't ask? I guess you could say it kinda clicked for me because I always liked hyper-realistic shooters, and it also may play into the fact that I'm in the military as an ROTC cadet. It started as a recommendation, then an obsession, then it turned to an all-out addiction. Anonymous therapy aside, Tarkov is like moonshine. You'll consume it non-stop and be blind of everything happening around you, both in-game and IRL. One day you may have a couple million rubles, but the next day you'll be a Russian serf because a reserve rat sat in the corner of D2 for 20 minutes with a cutter and the worst ammo in the game, and your gun jams mid-spray and he just fucking head-eyes you. Fortunately, I don't have much of that issue because I play with a group, but the game is still fun solo. I just don't like playing solo, that's all. Okay, so gameplay. To put it simply, Tarkov is a looter shooter with RPG elements. There really isn't a hard goal to the endgame. What I mean by this is that the endgame is what you want it to be. It's kinda sandboxy in a way. It could be completing all of the Kappa quests, or even maxing out your hideout. The main loop is you get some gear ready, deploy into a map, loot, kill, escape, or die. If you're a newbie and you're worried about losing your starter gear, don't be. The gear you get is only good with later game mods and ammo, but if you're still intimidated, you could always play as a scav. Scavs are pretty much poorly geared enemies scattered throughout the map, but you can play as one. It's like playing normally, but the stakes are lower because you're not losing anything. The only downside are that scavenger gear isn't good, and you spawn mid-raid where half of the map is probably looted already except for stashes. Go for stashes. You'd be surprised on how many people neglect stashes at times. I'm talking like making like 200k rubles in like a 5-minute run. It's insane. When you figure out what your stash run route is going to be, you'll be making some pretty serious bank in no time. On the other hand, the meat and potatoes is playing as your private military contractor, or PMC for short. It doesn't mean play your main character, but that's still kinda true. This is the main mode of Tarkov. This time, you deploy with the gear you bring in. There's more risk, but in turn there's a much higher reward, and that's how you go through the game's progression. You can mitigate a lot of the risk by playing with another person or in a group, and I really recommend that if you're new. Better yet, the game is just fun with multiple people. But I understand some people feel a lot more comfortable lone wolfing it. That's fine, that's perfectly acceptable too. Especially if you're doing certain quests, where being in a group will slow your progress down by a lot. And even still, there's some problems with playing as a group. You can be up to a 5-man team, but the more people you have on a team means there's less loot to go around, and you risk miscommunication and accidental team killing. In my experience, try being a duo or a trio, and try questing solo. At that point, there's enough loot to go around, and there's enough communication to prevent accidents from happening. There's also leveling your PMC, which allows you to unlock better gear and buffs. So there's main leveling and skill leveling. Skill leveling allows for minor buffs on stuff like the amount your hunger slows down, and main leveling unlocks the Flea Market and better gear from traders. I'll get into the Flea later. That's a very integral feature in Tarkov. To play the game, you need gear to protect yourself while looting or doing quests. To get that gear, you need to loot and fight. Looting is the bread and butter of Tarkov, but you really can't do anything safely unless you have the money to do so. Being a newbie, you will most likely not know what's valuable and what's not. Toothpaste? You're better off brushing your teeth with. Nuts and bolts? Instant 25k rubles. I still remember back when I first played trying to figure out what was worth keeping and what wasn't. The general rule of thumb is, if it sells to a trader for a lot, it's probably worth a lot. Maybe even a lot more in the fleet. However, this isn't entirely true. There are a good bit of items that don't sell much for traders, but they're worth so much to other players on this magical place known as the Flea. What makes the Flea so special? Okay, so when you're starting off, you're only limited to the gear you find in raid or traders. Certain goods are barred by your trader level, but that all changes when you get to level 20, and it is such a milestone to unlock the Flea. Last wipe, it actually used to be a lot easier to unlock because you got it at level 10. You'll be using the Flea, like a lot. At this point, you're now able to buy and sell from other players. This, of course, means you can now just buy your gear and other hideout ingredients, and although it may seem like traders aren't as valuable to level up as it seems, a lot of good items are cheaper to buy from traders, and you still need to level them for weapon mods and hideout upgrades. For a lot of people, including myself, weapon customization is my favorite thing to do in Tarkov. There's just so many customizations you can do on a large arsenal of guns. But the main goal for doing this is to make the recoil go down as low as possible while maintaining high ergonomics. I don't care. I just think it looks cool. And you can do crazy shit like this. And guess what? You can still use it in raid and PvP. I don't recommend it though because recoil will make you look up at the sky, but I still find it cool that these are possible to do. Most gun parts are based on actual weapon attachments. So if you happen to have an AR-15 like I do, you may be inspired to try an angle grip or swap muzzle brakes. Actually, Tarkov is the reason why I bought a World War II era Mosin with an Archangel stock. And to be honest, I do not regret that purchase. It's such a fun gun to shoot, and I ironically actually bought it from my local flea market. The second biggest part in Tarkov is questing and hideout upgrades. I'm bunching these two together because they go hand in hand. To upgrade your hideout, you need to level up your trader reputation to meet the upgrade prerequisites. And to level up your trader reputation, you need to do quests for them. As of writing this script, there are 8 traders, and one of them, which is my favorite, is hidden behind a quest. It's kinda MMO styled, kill X amount of PMCs or scavs, go to X location and grab white item, etc. Now that sounds easy, but here's the catch. There are certain quests where you need to either survive the raid with the item, do everything in one raid, or do tasks with very specific conditions.
I'm talking about you, survivalist path, cold-blooded.
So once you pull a few favors for these people, they will like you enough to sell you more equipment and allow you to upgrade your hideout. Your hideout is an underground bunker that looks like a middle-class house in Detroit, but it gets more homey with the more work you put into it. Still looks like you live in Detroit, but at least it's comfy. It's very important to work in your hideout. No, like, very important. Your hideout grants passive regen when you're not in raid, and you can craft supplies here too. Basically, it's a ruble-making investment with good returns late game. I mean, hell, you can farm Bitcoin. You want to keep having money rolling in and not get broke? Just put a little elbow grease into your hideout every now and then. Just to make sure you refuel your generators so that your crafting doesn't go to a crawl. I might as well bring this up as a footnote. There's only one major issue people may bring up with Tarkov, and that is some cheating issues. I mean, that's to be expected, all games have hacking of some kind, but Tarkov's gameplay kinda encourages people to do it more so than other games. I don't really come across them often, but there's players that swear they encounter hackers a lot more than I do. It could be that I play on East Coast servers, or maybe the hacking problem is over-exaggerated, or it could just be my luck. Don't let it discourage you. The evidence on the hacking problem is a bit inconclusive and mostly hearsay. On the bright side, there's a lot more hackers in TF2 than this game. Actually, that's not a bright side. I love Team Fortress 2. Okay, so no one talks about the lore. No one really cares about the lore, I guess, except for me. I don't see that many people talk about it, but there's a cool premise surrounding Tarkov. To put a long story short, Terror Group, a corporate giant, did the big shady in Tarkov to the point where the Russian government thought it was kinda sussy. Rather than stepping in, the region's officials hired the Bear private military company to investigate. This caused terror groups hired PMCs, USEC, to fight back. Oh wow, a game where the Russians are the good guys and the West are the bad guys. Thus, all hell broke loose. Certain civilians didn't like what was going on, so they turned to violence, and that's how Scavs came to be. Again, this is just a brief summary, and this video has gone on long enough. If you want to learn more, EUL Gaming and Tarkov Tales do a phenomenal job covering the lore more than I could have ever done. Links in the description to them. Tarkov is an experience that you probably will have an easier time getting into now. I know it's a bit intimidating, but trust me, you will like it. If you stick with it, I am developing my own game. As of this video's upload date, I've coded most of the framework, but this is my first public mention of the project. I plan on releasing a demo later in the year. If you want to see me develop my game or see me stream other games like Tarkov, I am on Twitch. I've put a lot of work into my game since May of this year. I make announcements on Twitter, and that is the easiest way to reach out to me. Rock on.